Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. It is just about May, and I'm going to talk about what we're going to be planting in May, and I'm going to throw in what we're going to be harvesting in May, because I think it's important to kind of discuss the two as we move forward, and we got a lot of spring crops and summer crops in the garden at the same time. So it's an exciting time of year, and I hope everybody else is just as excited as I am. Most of the beds in my main part of the garden are planted for the next foreseeable future. The only one that will end up changing, or the ones that will end up changing, will be the potato bed, but they have to be done, and the onion and garlic bed, which are coming right along. We do have this bed here, which we've talked about, I think it was in the last video, and we're still actively clearing it out, so we'll be working on that. No big, huge rush right now, but we are getting to crunch time. And I know I was talking about the lettuce that was bolting, and we had a couple warm days, so we'll be able to come out and clean up what's been bolting pretty easy and make more room in here. And that's just to make way for our sweet potatoes. So May is a big planting month for sweet potatoes in my area. Everything is getting nice and warm. So we're gonna get these sweet potatoes in the ground so they can do their thing. But there's not a whole lot for me to plant in May, generally speaking. I have in the past planted my watermelons and cantaloupe, but our weather has been super weird, so I planted them a little bit early, but I may have to replant them because today I just about need a jacket on. It's like borderline, but the sun's not out. So if the sun was out, it'd be a different story, but I'll show you what's going on here. So in this bed is mostly peppers and stuff like that, but on the front row, we planted our cantaloupes, and you can see they're just baby sprouts, and watermelons. So we did this a little bit early. Usually it's the first week of May when they go in. And I also came over here and redid this container situation a little bit, and we put a watermelon in this pot here, and we actually put our gourds in this pot. So we're gonna try and grow gourds, and that would be another one that we're gonna plant in May. So all of these plants really do like warm soil. And we had like a couple weeks where it was in the 80s, high 80s, mid 80s. And then this week it's like, bam, it's in low 70s, upper 60s during the day, mid 50s at night. We may even drop down to like 49 one night. So we're just gonna keep an eye out on some of the stuff we planted. But as far as planting goes, that's all we're gonna plant, but we're also gonna start a couple things. I'm gonna take you over here and show you what I'm gonna do and why I'm gonna do it, what the plan is for now. So these are my Roma tomatoes I started, and I don't know why I did it, but I planted them too far forward. But I mean, you live and learn. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna propagate some of these tomatoes this month. And in particular, I'm gonna let this sucker right here grow out, and then I'll propagate that one, basically all the lower ones. So within the next couple weeks, all of these bottom suckers, as soon as they get a little bit of height to them, we are going to clip those and propagate them. Now we're propagating them because we can do a second planting of tomatoes in our area. I know it's crazy, right? So a couple weeks, we'll propagate them, we'll start that process. And then once we harvest our onions and garlic out of this bed right here, which should be, I want to say it's going to be in like probably early June is when we'll get everything out of both of these beds, to be exact. But this one in particular, I think we're going to go ahead and put the tomatoes in there that we have propagated. So last year we did that, and we just did a test and it worked out good. And we actually started them almost in August. So we're going to get them in the ground as early as possible. I'd say if we start the tomato propagation in mid-May, by roughly mid-June, we should have enough roots to get in, which means we can get this harvested, get them dried, get the soil worked, get the lines buried and everything, and then get them replanted. And then we'll have another crop of tomatoes come fall. So this is going to be really important for us. And then we don't have to start any seeds. We don't have to turn on lights. We don't have to water anything crazy. And that's why I built that washing station the way I did, so I could put these plants back there where they stay shaded and they can continue to grow. As far as planting, that's really all we got to plant in May. It all came fast and quick in the spring and April, and we were able to get things in the ground a little bit early. I can still be growing, sowing squashes and stuff like that. I can be succession sowing if I wanted. Now I do it a little bit early so I can try and beat the squash vine borer. So we tried to get everything planted as soon as we could, and they're doing great. But we can continuously plant throughout the summer for those, and we will be doing that. But for right now, because all of the beds are filled up with that, we're not planting that in May. But just know that you can. And if you're not in the same zone as me, or zone 8A, or your weather's not quite right, you can adjust these dates that I'm giving you by a week or two on either side. Just keep an eye out on your weather and it'll help you. Now, even though we're not doing a lot of planting, we're finally getting into where we're gonna start harvesting some things. And so one thing is, I didn't expect these peas to do as well as they had. I mean, all through the winter, we had a couple just shoots coming up. And I honestly, I even came on the podcast, the Backyard Gardens podcast, and was like, I don't think I'm gonna have peas this year. And now look at them, they've just exploded. So we are just now starting to get some good pea development. And I have a feeling, depending on what the weather does, it may come fast and heavy this year. So we're gonna try and do as much harvesting as we can off this. I was just looking, and you can see how they're not really coming up the trellis this year. It kind of slipped a little bit and they're growing out. So I mean, they're growing like 3 feet out. So I think a lot of the harvesting, unfortunately, is going to be on the other side of the trellis. But even here, we're starting to get some. So we'll be able to stay on top of it a little bit. And like I said, I think it's going to come fast and heavy this year. And our carrot bed is coming along too. There is a possibility that we would be harvesting our carrots here sometime in late May. I could see this happening. They won't be as sweet as they are in the spring, but these carrots are coming right along. I think that we could possibly be harvesting them. So that would start rounding out our spring crops, if you say. The only thing that would be left would be our potatoes, and there is a little bit of an update on those. If you look at them, you can see that they're starting to lean. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to be time to harvest, but it means that they're getting really big, and essentially what's happening is gravity is just going to pull them down. If we come over here, you can see how in fact it is already here. And so this is going to be, this plant right here is starting to lay, and we're probably going to end up seeing these all lay down at some point. I'm hoping that they lay this way. That would for sure be a best case scenario for me if they all fell this way, because then they would let my green beans come up behind. To be honest, I didn't anticipate him getting them as big this year. Last year when I grew them, they're about half the size. So hopefully that's a good indication of what's going on underground. I'm really tempted to just do a little light digging and see what's happening, but I'm not gonna do it just yet. I'm not gonna do it, I'm gonna be patient. But I will tell you, within the next few videos, there probably will be a light digging occurring, just so we can kind of get a feel for what's going on under there and kind of know what to expect. It won't tell us for sure, but it'll give us a good idea. And so in this bed, we've got 2 cabbages left. And in that bed way over there, I think we have 2 or 3 cabbages left. The next warm spell we get, we're gonna cut them no matter what. We're just gonna go ahead and get them out. Right now with the weather this way, I'm not really worried about it because it's really good growing conditions for them. It's the perfect temperature. So we're not really gonna stress doing anything like that, but those are gonna go, the next warming trend we get, they're definitely coming out. We've decided to leave a couple of these Napa cabbages behind. And what we're gonna do is, I was looking at them and the outside leaves are really damaged from the snails, but the inside aren't. So we're gonna treat them with BT and just kind of let them grow out and see what happens. We're not gonna hold up any planting for them whatsoever. If they finish in time, great, and if they don't, that's fine. But we do wanna try and just see how much of a head we can actually get. Even if it's not edible, we can still learn from it. You know, I wouldn't eat it because if it's filled with snails or cabbage loopers or something like that. but just letting it go to head will give us a timeline about what we can expect. So we'll finish that out too. All the kale will continuously be harvested. I believe that we may be seeing the last influx of kale and stuff like that, which to be honest is just fine with me. We're nowhere close to harvesting tomatoes yet. That probably won't happen, I'd say, until about June. Middle June is when we'll start getting some kind of tomato. And to me, harvesting green tomatoes is harvesting tomatoes because I love fried green tomatoes. So we're going to be doing that. The squash here is doing okay, but when we step into the greenhouse, you'll see that's a different story. And so these zucchinis, as a matter of fact, they actually have their first buds coming up. They'll probably all be male buds at first, but they are coming up. So we will be harvesting these. I would imagine we'll start getting something in May. Probably in the next couple weeks we will. And on these tomatoes here, these are all of our ground cherries. We do have blossoms on them and quite a few buds coming up. So there is a pretty good chance that the greenhouse will give us our first harvest off of these summer plants. Now, I know I said that I wasn't really going to get any tomato harvest, but the greenhouse doesn't count because it's still ahead. And I think as we get these cool nights, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shut the door and keep it a little bit warmer in there during the night. So, you know, we can just keep that process going longer and longer. And that'll give us, you know, an earlier harvest on that. We really are hoping to get enough ground cherries this year to start really making some ground cherry jelly this year, but we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. Our cucumbers are a ways off, and what else may just happen in May, maybe, as I look at it, we may be getting some onions. So we had a pretty good windstorm, like actually quite a few of them, and they've gotten blown over and beaten up pretty good, but they're not bolting, so that's a good sign. And some of them are starting to bulb now, so we could very well start maybe harvesting some of these. Some of these, like this one, not even close, but if you look around, some of them you could very well be getting some kind of harvest off of them. I have not checked my garlic yet, but the thickness of the stalks at the bottom are really good. Don't anticipate harvesting the garlic at all, but it's showing signs that it may be getting ready to be harvested. You know, we want to wait for the tops to kind of die off mostly, if not all the way. And last year when I planted, this is my grocery store garlic now, and I saved it from last year. It didn't look anything like this. So this is definitely a good sign moving forward that our grocery store garlic test is working. So we're truly hoping that we can just go ahead and get this bed cleared out and just really get it as early as possible. Each day I come out here, I see different signs of when something needs to be harvested or could be. So it just takes time. And you know, one day I'll say, oh, we can harvest it in a couple weeks. One day is, oh, we need to wait a couple more weeks. It just depends how fast these things grow. And we're not fertilizing the onions anymore because the majority of them are bulbing. So we're just gonna let them finish out their process now. Same with the garlic. We're not fertilizing them at all. Just kind of letting them bulb up and do their thing. And actually, one thing I did forget about is around this area here, we will be putting in some sunflowers. So we've got one in, but we do plan to add more. So we'll be adding those in as necessary just to kind of fill in the areas and gaps and really just let it get a little bit warmer before we start planting those. And as far as that, if you really wanted to know, this bed over here is going to be reworked, and we're actually going to be planting flowers into that bed. So we're going to fill this bed, that bed by the shed, with flowers, and we're doing it for a specific reason. It's a little early to mention, but we are discussing raising bees starting hopefully maybe very soon. If you guys have raised any bees, let us know in the comments how much time it takes you to manage your colony of bees and stuff like that. So we're just kind of toying with the idea right now, but we've really been working on this bed for a couple years, and that's not really done well. So we're actually going to go through and do it right. but we will be starting to add more flowers because everything has been, the weather has just been so crappy, you know, up, down, all that stuff, heartbreak zone in full effect. So we're gonna just kind of be working on that. And the last thing that we are gonna be harvesting soon will be our blueberries. So you can see here, we're full of berries. Some of them, a couple already here and there, and we'll probably start coming out in the next week and pulling them. But for the most part, we got a lot of green berries waiting to blow up. We've planted them. This is the 4th year for some of these bushes. We didn't do them all at once. So some of them are really coming into their peak performance. Not that they're gonna die off, but they're really getting ready to push more and more growth and get more blueberries off of them, which was always the goal. So we'll start harvesting these, and the trick is to get them before the birds get them. But they don't ripen once you pick them, so it's a little bit of a dancing match. So I hope everybody's excited about this time of year as I am. I love harvesting. I mean, that's the whole reason why I grow. It's the reward system. But I think what I'm gonna start doing in the summer is doing videos like this, but about harvesting. Because for us in really the late fall, winter, and spring, things are very sporadic. And we just kind of get them when we get them. But in the summer, it's like it comes all at once. And so it'd be kind of fun to kind of make a record of it and just kind of keep track of how much we're getting from the garden when we're getting it. If we get anything, you never know what this year is going to bring.